and welcome. Tonight, Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi dismisses claims that the support for his ambition was fueled by ethnic and religious appeal. Says it's all about his commitment to bringing change to the country. Following recent attacks on his campaign team, APC governorship flag bearer in Benue State, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, calls on his supporters to remain peaceful, just as 6 of the governorship candidates signed peace accord. Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State sacks the Commissioner for Labour and Productivity as traders protest against what they say is a move by the NLC to cripple businesses in Imo State. Angola to deploy military forces to Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo after a truce it brokered failed to end fighting between rebels and Congolese forces.
And on Business News tonight, OPEC Plus oil production drops by 80,000 barrels per day in February on Russia's resilient output, plus Nigeria records 3.8% increased production.
And on sports news tonight, Italian court declares ban on Eintracht Frankfurt supporters illegal ahead of Napoli trip in the UEFA Champions League.
Remain calm while we fight for redress. That's the message by the Labour Party presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, to his supporters as he continues his tour of some states ahead of the governorship and state houses of assembly elections on Saturday. Mr. Obi, who visited Delta and Edo states today, had yesterday visited Enugu, Abia, and later Anambra states. In Edo State, he held a town hall meeting with supporters and reiterated that he has all it takes to fix the country.
It's about 2 weeks after the 2023 presidential election, and the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, who was a contender at the poll, Mr. Peter Obi, is on what he describes as a thank-you visit to his home state of Anambra after visiting Enugu and Abia states. While congratulating Labour Party candidates who were victorious in the National Assembly polls, Mr. Obi reflects on the outcome of the presidential election, in which he says he ran a good race.
People who voted for me across the nation voted for hope. I've never rigged the election. I've never paid anybody to do the same. I've never bought votes, never paid anybody to vote for me, and I'll never do so. Those who voted for me voted for hope. In most places where people think I was voted by only a group of people or Igbos, it is wrong. They voted for hope. That was their vote. And I keep saying to Nigerians, I will change Nigeria. I know what it takes. I've done it at what I can call a subnational state. So I have the experience and I have the contacts globally that can change Nigeria.
Next stop for him is Delta State, where he campaigns for his party's governorship candidate, Mr. Ken Pella. From Delta, he moves to Benin City in Edo State to appreciate the people there for casting their ballots for him, advising them to do the same for the State House of Assembly candidates next week.
On behalf of Nadia and myself, I thank you sincerely. What we've been doing is going around and telling the people, thank you, showing them gratitude, and assuring you, though there's darkness, the day will follow. Though we go through darkness today, the day will follow. Your mandate will not go away in vain. I'm urging you, people of Edo State, and all Nigerians, election is coming up on the 18th. Go out and continue to vote for Labour Party.
With mission accomplished, and as Mr. Obi and his team depart the state, the hope is that he has done enough to convince the people to vote for all Labour Party candidates in all the places he has visited.
Staying with politics, the APC governorship candidate in Bauchi State, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, says that 3 of his security details were shot during the recent violence that broke out in Duguri. He said his men succeeded in retrieving 2 guns from the thugs who carried out the attack. Air Marshal Abubakar also raised concerns about the possibility of thugs being used on election day, while asserting that the APC will not be intimidated. He stated this during a media briefing with journalists in Bauchi.
My security details were shot. You have Mohammed Winti. It's not this fictitious 15 people were wounded. Who are the 15 people? I'm giving you names which you can verify and where they are. Mohammed Winti was shot in the stomach. Babangida Adamu was shot in his hand, and then Sani Ali shot in his leg and his back. 2 of the guys, that is Mohammed Winti and Babangida Adamu, have been operated. They underwent surgery this morning. It's extremely sad. But definitely I want to finally appeal to our APC supporters, don't be distracted by these fictitious claims of the PDP. As a state, we are united that this government has failed and that we are going to send the government packing by the special grace of God on the 18th of March. The people will speak, and on that day, I hope they will not come out with tax, because we are also monitoring what they are doing. But I'm sure the security agencies that we have are equal to the task. They are also monitoring everybody. And I want to call my supporters, APC supporters, wherever they are in Bauchi State, not to shed anybody's blood and not to take anybody's life. And I challenge the governor to make this simple sentence, if he can.
Following the violence in Duguri, Bauchi State, 6 of the governorship candidates in the state have formally committed to a peaceful conduct of the governorship and state assembly elections as they sign a peace accord ahead of the exercise. They are the governorship candidates of the People's Democratic Party, All Progressives Congress, New Nigeria People's Party, People's Redemption Party, Labour Party, and Zenith Labour Party. Our correspondent, Hajara Liu, has this report.
Deputies to sign the peace accord.
Governorship candidates in Bauchi State are pending their signatures to a written commitment for a peaceful electioneering process. On the same day the peace accord was signed, violence broke out during the governorship campaign of the All Progressives Congress in Duguri, Al-Kalewi local government area, leaving 1 person dead. Part of the peace accord reads that they are desirous of taking proactive measures to prevent any form of violence before, during, and after the election. I'm delighted to be part of this. The violent incident in Duguri leaves much to be desired about their commitments. The candidates share concerns on what ingredients is required for peace to reign beyond just signing a written document.
We plead that this election should be free of logistic problems. We hope the equipment will work, and then of course materials will reach their destinations on time. We hope our citizens will not be disenfranchised.
Once there is an iota of unfairness in the process, this may disrupt what we have just signed.
That peace is not the absence of violence, but the absence of justice. So we expect justice from all of you.
The police and the INEC give their words.
On the side of the security, we have promised to be very, very fair and humble. The politicians, I will wish that you will be fully guided by the provision of Electoral Act 2022.
We do assure you all the polling unit will work with the beavers and the beavers will work. We assure you that, and then the poll will be in good time.
The police in the state is vowing to sanction anyone who incites others to act in a disorderly manner. The penalty is pegged at a maximum fine of 500,000 naira or imprisonment for a term of 12 months or both. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
The River State Governor, Nyesom Wike, is describing the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, as the hero of the just concluded presidential election. Governor Wike says despite the fact that Mr. Obi was not declared the winner, his participation in the poll guaranteed the emergence of a Southerner as the president-elect. Governor Wike stated this during a town hall meeting with Igbo traders in some markets in Port Harcourt, the River State capital, where he also dismissed allegations of working against the presidential bid of Mr. Obi.
Governor Nyesom Wike of River State holds 3 separate meetings ahead of the second phase of the elections, beginning with this meeting with the Igbo technical tool traders at St. John's Junction on Aba Road, Port Harcourt, the state capital. He's accompanied by the governorship candidate of the PDP in the state, Sim Fubara, the South-South Vice Chairman of the PDP, Dan Obi, among others, as the chairman of the traders sets the tone for the meeting.
From that 2015 to date, we have been supporting your government. We have not lost faith in you. If everybody lose faith in you in River State, personally, I have not lost faith in you. I strongly believe you, and I know that you will not leave us today without telling us something as a father.
Beyond the praises, Governor Wike says he came to the market because he heard that the traders were angry with him over the allegation that he worked against the Labour Party's Peter Obi during the presidential election. He assures the traders there was no reason to work against Mr. Obi, as he and the other G5 governors advocated for Southern presidency, which was why he did not openly support anyone. Nevertheless, he declared the Labour Party presidential candidate as the hero of the election, whose participation guaranteed the emergence of a Southerner as the president-elect.
Since I do campaign, when I hear we are talking against Obi one day, not one person I talk against. Not so. For me, for this election, what I do, no Obi, as far as I'm concerned, might be my hero. You know why? Nobody don't clap hand. Nobody don't clap hand. I don't want you to clap hand at all. Let me tell you, if Obi not run this election, power will go back to the north. And they challenge anybody. If Obi did not run this election, as I talk here today, power will go back to the north.
He urges the traders to ignore comments by detractors and vote for the PDP on March 18.
Where they brought today? No man can talk to themselves. No, la business, they are ready for business. 8 years for minister. Eastern Port died. Enough you talk to make you revamp the Eastern Port so that our business will come up. If it want to go narrow and standard gauge, you do have. Now which one go across the Imo State? Look at tell me now.
From here, he walks down to the phone and computer market at the Garrison Junction, where he addresses some issues and donates 30 plots of land for their ICT village project. Governor Wike also meets with traders at the building materials market in the Mile 3 area on the same issues.
In part 2, after the break, INEC Appeals court judgment allowing 2 Nigerians to use the temporary voter card in the March 18th governorship and state houses of assembly elections. That's in a moment. Join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi dismisses claim that the support for his ambition was fueled by ethnic and religious appeal. Says it's all about his commitment to bringing change to the country. Following recent attacks on his campaign team, APC governorship flag bearer in Benue State, Sadiq Abubakar, calls on his supporters to remain peaceful, just as 6 of the governorship candidates signed peace accord. Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State sacks the Commissioner for Labour and Productivity as traders protest against what they say is a move by the NLC to cripple businesses in Imo State. Angola to deploy military forces to Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo after a truce it brokered failed to end fighting between rebel forces and the Congolese government. Gladiators in the internal crisis rocking the Ogun State chapter of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, may have left the past behind them, as Mr. Segun Showunmi and the party's governorship candidate in the state, Mr. Ladi Adebutu, seem to have settled the lingering feud between them. The decision to work together in next week's governorship election was communicated during a press conference after a closed-door meeting in Abeokuta, the state capital. The two leaders called for unity of purpose amongst party supporters.
God has removed all legal encumbrances, so we thank God that we are being freed of physical encumbrances as well, as these people that are sharing two minds. If they must have lucre, let them go and have their lucre somewhere else, where we now enjoy the inflow of new members, fresh feet, strong bodies to do the job necessary. We are on the upswing and we shall win. There's no doubt about it. I can assure you that whenever government changes in this state, it changes because a new team comes on board, not an old team. All these people are expired and we're happy that they have given us space, they have left.
Anybody, I repeat, who considers the governorship of Ogun State in Ogun State for this next election, anybody who considers it to have been won should go back to his drawing board, because the governorship contest for Ogun State has just begun and PDP has just put his leg in the ring, and I will be their forward striker.
In Taraba State, the Labour Party has distanced itself from its governorship candidate, Mr. Philip Mulip, who recently endorsed the state PDP governorship candidate, Mr. Kefas Abu. Speaking at a media briefing, the state chairman of the party, Mrs. Esther Gumu, describes the action of Mr. Mulip as mischief. Meanwhile, the APC in the state says it has resolved all the lingering issues that led to the delisting of its governorship candidate by INEC and can now contest next Saturday's poll.
This press conference is organized by the governorship candidate of the Labour Party in Taraba State, Mr. Philip Mulip. He is here to announce his endorsement of the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Abu.
The Taraba State leadership of the CPDM, after critically examining the gubernatorial candidates and looked at their antecedent and capacity for the forthcoming governorship election, has decided to support the candidacy of Lieutenant Colonel Abu Kefas, PhD, of the People's Democratic Party.
However, his decision is not going down well with the party's leadership, who believe his action is motivated by personal gains.
Philip Mulip is not the leader of Labour Party or gubernatorial candidate of Labour Party in the state. Thus, his claim that the party leadership in the state and himself endorse the PDP candidate is highest mischief and of no effect, as the party at no time in the state has abandoned her principal, Peter Obi, or their guest, to take over the government of Taraba come 18 March 2023.
In a related development, the All Progressives Congress in Taraba State says the coast is now clear for its governorship candidate, Senator Emmanuel Boacha, to contest the governorship election on Saturday.
As people who respect the rule of law, who respect the court, we decided to go to court to seek clarification from INEC itself, because we always thought, and truly too, that INEC cannot assume the powers of the court. INEC has no right under the Constitution or the Electoral Act to refuse a name submitted by a political party. It is entirely the prerogative of the political party to produce candidates for elected positions in the country. Everybody knows that this is the law. And since that name was resubmitted to INEC, there has never been any a challenge in court. Nobody has gone to court to challenge the outcome of the primaries as of the time I'm speaking here.
Legal tussles had trailed the emergence of the party's governorship candidate, and the party believes all that is now behind as they hope to emerge victorious on Saturday, March 18.
In the aftermath of recent attacks on some communities in 6 local government areas in Benue State, local government chairmen in the state have applied to INEC to move 48 polling units to safer grounds in Kwande local government area. The chairman of the Benue State chapter of the Association of Local Government of Nigeria, Mr. Michael Uba, made this known while briefing journalists in Makurdi, the state capital. He explained that the situation hampered the participation of people in the presidential and National Assembly elections.
Displacement of farmers in rural communities in Benue State continues as communities across 6 local government areas are attacked by criminals on the eve of the presidential and National Assembly elections. According to the residents, over 33 persons were killed in the attacks across the local government areas.
We are telling you that the menace is still going on. Though the security agents, they try in their own way, but the problem that we're having is they are not sufficient. For instance, in 6 local governments, for an attack to happen simultaneously, I think it will be very difficult for the security agent to take care of the whole scenario.
The consequence of the attack is that 48 polling units have been affected as the residents are unable to vote due to the displacement.
As we are talking today, you can confirm with INEC, we have applied for relocation of about 48 polling units in 3 councils, if at all the election is to go to be held, and if those people should, the communities affected are to participate. We have applied for relocation of the polling booths before the next election. And if it were to be held on Saturday, it would have been impossible.
The state resident electoral commissioner, who declined to speak on camera, says he's careful not to move the polling units because it confers advantage on one political party. He hopes to meet with stakeholders in the affected areas to find a solution. In the meantime, the Young Progressives Party, YPP, has withdrawn from the governorship election in the state. The party is backing the candidate of the People's Democratic Party.
Self-satisfaction will not mortgage the development we hope for in Benue State. On that note, YPP has chosen to align with the People's Democratic Party on the area of governorship election.
He urged members of the party to work for the victory of the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party during the state election.
In legal matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has appealed the judgment of a federal high court mandating it to allow 2 registered voters with temporary voter cards, TVCs, to participate in the March 18th governorship and state houses of assembly elections. The chief press secretary to the INEC chairman, Mr. Rotimi Oyekomi, confirmed that the commission filed the appeal in the nation's capital on Friday. Justice Obiora Iguatu of the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja had on Thursday ruled in a case brought before him by 2 aggrieved registered voters, Kofo Olusegun and Wilson Orwell. The court held that there was no portion of the law, both the 1999 Constitution and the Electoral Act as amended, that states that it is only permanent voter cards that can be used, but that the law under Section 47 provided for only a voter's card. The 7th Edo State House of Assembly will be remembered for many controversies right from the first day on June the 19th, 2019, when it was inaugurated. Following the chaos that erupted in the House, only 10 out of the 24 constituencies in the state were eventually represented at the Assembly. This next report takes a look at some of the issues that characterized the crisis in the 7th Edo Assembly ahead of the elections to choose new members of the House.
June 17, 2019, day 1 of the saga that embroils the 7th Assembly in Edo State. The clerk of the Edo State House of Assembly, Yahaya Omogbai, administers oath of office for 9 lawmakers from the 24 that won their constituency's election during the March 9, 2019 general elections.
Do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance.
The member representing Asa North East, Frank Okie, is elected Speaker. This is behind closed doors at the Assembly complex in Benin City, the Edo State capital. The exact time still a topic for debate till date. The narrative continues with more inauguration and defection. The House purportedly divided over loyalty to Governor Godwin Obaseki and then National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Adams Oshomole. The standing members that met the conditions for inauguration following the proclamation by Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki on June 17, 2019 are Frank Okie, who was elected Speaker, Marcus Onobun, Yekini Diaye, Roland Asoro, Henry Okwarobu, Emmanuel Agbaje, Nosayaba Okumbo, Ephraim Alorusele, Emmanuel Okodua, and Sunday Osezua. The key dates in the 7th Edo State House of Assembly crisis. July 11, 2019, the House of Representatives sets up a fact-finding committee, requests IGP Mohammed Adamu to shut down the Assembly complex pending investigation. July 30, 2019, the Senate concurs with the House of Representatives' request to compel Governor Godwin Obaseki to issue a fresh proclamation. August 3, 2019, matter goes to court, suit to restrain Governor Godwin Obaseki from issuing fresh proclamation. September 12, 2019, the Federal High Court, Port Harcourt, validates Governor Godwin Obaseki's June 14 proclamation of the House of Assembly on June 14. December 4, 2019, Speaker Frank Okie declares 14 seats vacant after members-elect's absence for the mandatory 181 days to attend plenary in a year. August 6, 2020, unsuccessful attempt to access the Edo State Assembly complex by the Oshomole faction. A parallel inauguration subsequently held in a private venue in the state capital. Victor Eduro of Asan Central elected Speaker. October 12, 2020, impeachment at the House. Marcus Onobun, Asan West, replaces Frank Okie as Speaker of Edo State House of Assembly. It seems like ages ago now, but the embroilio in the Edo State House of Assembly has left its toll on the vacant constituencies. Nwode residents lament.
For this past period, we don't have it. We people from Nwode have been neglected in the state affair. There's no road, no water, no government presence in Nwode.
The affected lawmaker-elect, Washington Osifo, alleges a connivance between the executive and judiciary.
The legal system
of Nigeria, particularly that of Edo State, that is under the whims and caprices of the executive arm of government as represented by the governor himself, who also, succeeded in bringing them to his own, to do and understanding with him to continue to keep us out beyond, far beyond what the governor did to exclude us. The courts here, the judiciary here, made matters even worse for democracy.
The Edo State Commissioner for Youth and Gender Issues, Andre Mata, was part of the state's legal team for the assembly matter. He insists that Governor Obaseki follows due process all the way.
How the National Assembly issued, they issued resolutions directing the state governor. And of course, the then Deputy Speaker, Idia Yanko, they went to court to challenge that particular resolution of the House. And of course, the Federal High Court, though the South vacation judge sitting in Port Harcourt, gave its judgment that the proclamation issued by the governor was properly done and that the House was properly proclaimed. And even the National Assembly at that time, they proceeded to the Court of Appeal. And I don't think, the Court of Appeal upturns that judgment.
The jury might still be out on the legitimacy of the 7th Edo State House of Assembly, but the end of the legislative chronicle is in sight as the electorate go out to choose representatives for the 24 constituencies of Edo State come March 18, 2023, in the state's House of Assembly election. And in spite of the shutout, 9 of the 14 APC lawmakers-elect absent from the 7th Assembly are seeking another opportunity to represent their people.
What is their position? Anywhere, sir. What's the important thing is meeting. Yes, it's meeting.
An unconfirmed number of persons have been kidnapped following an attack by government on an estate close to Kubwa neighborhood in Buhari area council of the nation's capital. The FCT Police Command spokesperson, Mrs. Josephine Adair, said that the police are combing the bush in the area for the attackers and their victims. Although she did not state the number of persons abducted, a resident of the area told Channels Television that children and a woman are among those taken away by the attackers. The resident confirmed that the incident happened in the early hours of today. Mrs. Adair is appealing to residents not to panic, calling on them to help the police with credible information that could lead to the arrest of the attackers. Thousands of internally displaced persons living in camps situated in Ngala community in Benue State are in dire need of food, shelter, and other basic necessities of life. The camps, which had an initial capacity to accommodate 400 IDPs, now have over 4,000 occupants, including women and children. The majority of the occupants are internally displaced persons that were relocated from other camps after the state government closed down some camps within the state capital.
For some time now, the Benue State government has spent billions of naira for the relocation of IDPs to liberated communities in the state. However, some of these relocated IDPs have found themselves again in other camps outside the state capital after being attacked by Boko Haram insurgents. One of such camps is this one in Ngala community, a border town on the fringes of the Lake Chad. The community hosts 4 camps with an initial capacity to accommodate 400 inmates. However, the camps have been overpopulated with over 4,000 occupants, with many lacking food, water, and shelter.
I'm originally from Kalabagi. I was in Gubi camp in Maiduguri before the government evicted us to Guam in Mafa. We were attacked by Boko Haram after 3 days of relocation. 3 IDPs were killed by the insurgents, while 3 others were injured. The place they kept us is not fenced and had no security, so we decided to come to Ngala, about 447 families. However, here in Ngala, we don't have shelter, and there is scarcity of water, even though this place is safe.
We also visited the hospital in Ngala, where some of the IDPs seek medical help.
In
the village, we cannot go to the farm because of Boko Haram, so we depend on handouts from donors. My husband is a bricklayer. When he gets a job, he buys food for us. If not, we stay hungry for days. I gave birth 5 months ago, but I have not been able to breastfeed my daughter.
Benue State has had a fair share of insurgency, causing many to be relocated to IDP camps within and outside the state. However, the state government has since the last 2 years been embarking on the relocation of IDPs to the ancestral homes. Nevertheless, pending when every IDP is settled in their ancestral homes, there is an urgent need to look into the plight of those who are still in IDP camps.
To labor-related issues in Imo State, where Governor Hope Uzodinma has sacked the Commissioner for Labor and Productivity, Mr. Ford Ozumba. In a statement signed by the Commissioner for Information, Mr. Declan Emilumba, the removal is with immediate effect, as the governor directed Mr. Ozumba to hand over all necessary documents to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Labor and Productivity immediately. No reason has been given for the sack, but some sources say it may be connected to the ongoing crisis between the leadership of the Nigeria Labour Congress, led by Comrade Joe Ajaero, and the Imo State government. Meanwhile, traders under the aegis of Imo State Amalgamated Markets and Allied Traders Association today stormed the government house in Owerri, the Imo State capital, in protest against the directive of the NLC to cripple business activities in the state. The leadership of the NLC had called for an indefinite strike in Imo State over alleged brutalization of some of its members by security operatives and agents of government. The protesters, who carried placards with various inscriptions, blocked the entrance to the government house, calling on Governor Hope Uzodinma to intervene and ensure the strike is halted, as livelihood and welfare of citizens and traders are being affected. However, the Deputy Governor of Imo State, Mr. Placid Njoku, who received the protesters, gave them the assurance that the state government will do everything possible to bring the situation under control.
Our state has suffered enough from unknown gunmen, from kidnappers and so on, that nobody should come here and impose any more hazards on our people. We refuse that absolutely. And so His Excellency the Governor wants me to tell you that he will stand with you. He will stand with you to ensure that nobody comes here to countermand the efforts of government in Imo State. Imo State is our state. The government knows what its responsibilities are in this state, and we shall stand up to those responsibilities irrespective of whoever it is. And we cannot tolerate anybody coming from outside to destabilize what is happening in Imo State. Imo State is peaceful. Yes. Imo State is peaceful. Imo State will remain peaceful, and nobody can come from outside to destabilize Imo State. State government will not accept it.
Occupants of vehicles that collide with a train are 40 times more likely to die than if they had run into another vehicle of comparable size, and that's according to the Federal Railroad Administration. And as seen in the recent accident involving a train and a bus in Lagos, rail safety is important, and no one should be complacent, because the passengers, pedestrians and other safe corridors along that rail corridor. Now, in this special report, our correspondent tracks the rail infrastructure drive of both the federal and Lagos state government and some of the red flags that must be nipped in the bud.
More than 4,000 kilometers of national rail networks in the country. The lines are connecting, and the big picture, according to the federal government, is to connect more cities. 3,505-kilometer Cape gauge and 669 kilometers standard gauge. Safety of lives is on the line, and it's becoming more obvious that more deliberate efforts are needed to avert possible danger attached to the promising rail system in the country. From the federal to the state, there are gaps left to be filled. In Lagos, preliminary investigation reveals that reckless driving caused a train bus crash where 6 people died.
I think it's obvious that, when the train was coming, I think all signals were given just to indicate that the train was coming. So a lot of cars that were supposed to cross, past this junction, they stopped. But I heard that the staff bus that carry people to Alausa, the driver had an earpiece, so maybe he didn't hear, but he decided that he was going to beat the train. But unfortunately, when you don't understand the heaviness of of the vehicle, I think he underestimated probably the speed. But what we know is that he got hit, and then he was dragged about 200 to about 250 meters.
Traveling from Ibadan to Lagos, one observes that the Lagos end of the rail line becomes busier with trading activities and intersection crossings. The current manual signaling system in place has proven ineffective. Lagos, the city with the highest number of rail corridors, is building elevated structures, cable ducts, walkways in its drive to improve mass transit and commuting options. The intracity trains will run on its own electricity grid. This has raised another level of risk, especially for trespassers.
With the trial run on the already completed first phase of the Blue Line, the Lagos State government is eyeing the completion of the Red Line, which will run from Marina to Agbado. And this pedestrian bridge and the fencing around it are part of infrastructure built to ensure that the rail track is safe and secure.
Fenced off, but not enough to keep some people off the tracks.
The citizens should be very careful, and they should be notable. Now, there is supposed to be a sort of education. They educate them, it's good and it's bad, so that everybody will know that before we can use it.
An effective signaling and communication system, warning signs, perimeter fencing, public enlightenment, and other safety precautions. These essentials will help the country run an effective and purposeful rail system. Dari Idu, Channels Television News.
Now let's find out what's happening in the world of business. Laddie Williams has details.
Thanks, Melinda. In business news, the combined oil production of OPEC Plus group dropped by 80,000 barrels per day, while production from all 13 members of the cartel fell by 60,000 barrels per day in February. That's according to the latest Platts survey by S&P Global Commodity Insights. The decline is attributed to a small rise in Russia's oil production, which increased by 10,000 barrels to 9.86 million barrels per day within the month. Just last month, OPEC raised its crude oil production by 120,000 barrels per day amid a rebound in Nigeria's crude supply, which has risen by 3.8% to around 1.3 million barrels per day amid concerted effort to end oil theft. And despite the lingering effects of COVID-19 and the growing energy crisis, worldwide employment in renewable energy reached 12.7 million in 2022, marking a jump of 700,000 new jobs in 1 year. According to a new report published by the International Renewable Energy Agency in collaboration with the International Labour Organization, mentions that solar energy is found to be the fastest growing in that sector, as it provided 4.3 million jobs in 2021. The report shows that an increasing number of countries are creating jobs in renewables, with almost 2/3 in Asia. Meanwhile, Director General of the ILO, Guy Ryder, says the increasing share of female employment suggests that dedicated policies and training can significantly enhance women's participation in renewable energy, occupations, and inclusion. And outside our shores, California banking regulators have shut down Silicon Valley Bank and taken control of its customer deposits following the biggest collapse of a U.S. bank since 2008. The move comes as a tech and startup-focused lender was scrambling to raise money to plug a loss from the sale of assets affected by high interest rates. Officials say they're acting to protect insured depositors and have appointed the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation as receiver for later disposition of its assets.
Provide the guardrails and are safeguarding, are closely watching and are prepared to use the tools that they need. The FDIC stepped in very quickly here. And that's what they were doing, was protecting the deposits of those up to $250,000, and then they have a way to unwind the rest.
And back home, investor sentiment at the local equities market ended the first full trading week of March with moderate advance as the all-share index rose by nearly 0.5%. At the same time, the market's capitalization increased by 144 billion naira, recouping some of the losses it recorded within the week. However, on the activity chart, the total volume, value, and number of deals carried out this week was lower in contrast to the activities recorded on the NGX last week. Sectoral performance was mixed as the banking as well as the oil and gas sector index of the exchange ended deeply negative, while the consumer industrial goods and the insurance counter were positive. Top of the list of 22 advances is Julius Berger's share price, which gained 10% week to date. MRS Oil led 40 other losers, down nearly 19%, while the trio of Transcorp, GTCO, and Boa Cement were major contributors to 1.02 billion shares traded this week. Meanwhile, activities at the unlisted securities market ended the week green. The NSE OTC Exchange Security Index recorded a 0.34% advance. At the same time, the market capitalization gained nearly 4 billion naira to close the week at 955.83 billion naira. The total value of securities traded during the week rose by 143.34%. Total volume of securities traded on the exchange went up by 183.76%, while deals and stocks traded this week were higher by more than 3% each. Meanwhile, NIPCO was the top gainer, about 3 gainers for the week. Friesland and Campina led 2 other decliners, while Geofluids was the most traded security on the market this week. And here are some key expectations for Nigeria's capital market and financial market in the coming week. The bonds market, bearish sentiment is expected by traders as investors will focus on February inflation data to be released in the coming week by the National Bureau of Statistics. Over to the Treasury bills market, where investors are expected to shift attention to NTB PMA holdings on Wednesday, 15th of March, as CBN will be rolling over 161.87 billion naira worth of bills. For the money market, traders expect further squeeze in the system, expected as anticipated inflow of over 51 billion naira from FGN bond coupon payments may not be sufficient to support financial system liquidity. And lastly, at the equities market, mixed sentiment is expected in that segment of the capital market as investors take positions in stocks with attractive dividend yields, as well as profit taken on some stocks that will make gains. And that's it on Business News. Back to Melinda with the rest of the news.
Many thanks, Ladi. In other stories, the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria has inducted 503 foreign-trained medical and dental graduates who have returned to the country to practice their medical profession. The registrar of the institute, Dr. Tajuddin Sanusi, told the guests at the induction ceremony in Abuja that the return to practice at home will help reverse brain drain in the system.
This is a breath of fresh air. 503 trained medical professionals of Nigerian descent returned to Nigeria to practice what they've learned. Today, they are inducted by the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria in Abuja. In attendance are officials of the MDCN, health practitioners, government officials, parents, and development partners.
Because when you compare the number of those who are foreign trained with those who are locally trained, you are less than 10%. So the issue of JAPA, please, it won't do anybody any good. Those who are there, we go there every year, they complain. Some of them are already regretting that they ought to have come back. I think they knew. We want to advise that when you go in there, always have it in mind that you need to come back home and render care to your people back at home.
The profession of medicine is one of service to the people, one in which you have decided to dedicate your life to the service of the people.
According to the data obtained from the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, at least 85% of doctors trained in Nigeria are planning to leave the country for greener pastures in other countries like the United Kingdom and the United States of America. The guest lecturer at the ceremony, Dr. Osisonya Okiki, is not happy about this trend.
You should resist the temptation of the JAPA syndrome. Self-advertisement. This is permissible in the US and to some extent in the UK, but in Nigeria there is zero tolerance for self-advertisement.
The accepted standard is 1 doctor to 10 patients, but that is not the situation in Nigeria. Adding this 503 to the number of medical practitioners in the country could possibly change that situation.
Hello there and welcome to Sports News. We begin in the English Premier League where Bournemouth climbed out of the relegation zone with a well-deserved 1-0 victory over Liverpool, which dented the Reds' chances of qualifying for next season's Champions League. Elsewhere, Chelsea's mini revival continued with a 3rd victory in a row as they beat struggling Leicester City 3-1 at the King Power Stadium. In other matches, Harry Kane scored twice in a comfortable 3-1 victory over Nottingham Forest as Tottenham consolidated their place in the top 4. Dwight McNeil's goal after 35 seconds was enough to earn Everton a priceless 1-0 victory over Brentford to move out of the relegation zone. Now Leeds slipped back into the relegation places despite twice coming back from behind to earn a point in an entertaining 2-2 draw against Brighton at Elland Road. In the last game of the day, Manchester City beat Crystal Palace courtesy of a lone goal scored by Erling Haaland from the penalty spot in the 78th minute. Now, in the Champions League, an Italian court has overturned a ban on Eintracht Frankfurt fans attending next week's Champions League tie at Napoli. The ban, imposed on Friday by the Italian Interior Ministry, had targeted all people residing in Germany and was put in place ahead of the second leg of the club's last 16 clash. The administrative court ruled in favor of Frankfurt's application for an injunction against the ministry, saying that the ban was inadmissible. The ministry imposed the ban after violence in the first leg in Frankfurt, which saw 9 people taken into custody. The ruling means that Napoli will be required to make 2,700 tickets available for away fans. Still talking football, but away from the pitch, the gloves worn by Argentina goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez in the nail-biting penalty shootout with France at Qatar's World Cup final last year have been auctioned for $45,000 in an aid of a children's cancer hospital. Martinez partnered a pediatric foundation in his homeland to support them in their fight against childhood cancer. The Aston Villa goalkeeper autographed the inside of the gloves when announcing the donation. The 30-year-old claimed the Golden Glove prize at the World Cup and was adjudged the best goalkeeper at Best FIFA Football Awards in Paris last month. And that's where we'll wrap it up on Sports News. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. It's back to Melinda with the rest of the 10.
Many thanks, Victor. Angola says it will send a military unit to the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo days after a truce it brokered failed to end the fighting. The M23 rebels and Congo DR government troops, the two sides in the conflict, have accused each other of breaking the ceasefire that came into effect on Tuesday. An Eastern African force was also recently deployed to the mineral-rich area with dozens of militias. The UN says last month that the conflict forced 300,000 people from their homes in the North Kivu province, which borders Rwanda and Uganda. There's increasing concern about the humanitarian crisis as well, which has been caused by the fighting. And the main news again. The presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, today dismissed claims that the support for his ambition was fueled by ethnic and religious appeal. He said that it's all about his commitment to bringing change to the country. We also told you that the APC governorship flag bearer in Imo State, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, has called on his supporters to remain peaceful, just as 6 governorship candidates in the state signed a peace accord ahead of next week's state-level elections. That's the news at 10 tonight. I'm Melinda Akinlami. On behalf of the team, good night.